Hello everyone and welcome to a new lore crash course video. Today we're going to be looking at the continent of Wraeclast from the popular ARPG Path of Exile. So, get ready for some sarcasm and bad jokes, buckle up, and I hope you enjoy. If you're new to Path of Exile, or if you're like me, someone who's played since 2013 and just haven't bothered to read and piece together all of the in-game lore bits, then let me explain the basics of the history of the continent known as Wraeclast. First up there are the Vol, the oldest known race in Wraeclast, and because of that, not a lot is actually known about them. They're old. Like really frickin' old, and they like to build things through mechanical and magical means. They built pyramids, like the one you have to get through in the end of Act 2 to reach Act 3, and they built constructs, like various enemies in Act 2 and 3, mostly the ones with construct in their names. So these old peoples were just peaceful builders, content to make things. They were basically the ancient Egyptians, except more mysterious. Oh, and they practiced human sacrifice because, I don't know, it's exciting, probably. These peaceful murder builders were also the first people to discover the skill gems used in the current era the Path of Exile is set in. Except instead of something simple and explanatory like skill gems, they called them Tears of the Magi! Probably some cheap marketing ploy, I don't know, like calling Greenland Greenland when it's really just a lump of ice in the Atlantic. And this went on for like a long time before the Vol got themselves a new queen, Atziri. She was rich and powerful and super vain. Oh, and she loved sacrificing people, like a lot, like a scary amount. She was like, "Hey people, I'm gonna make myself immortal," and her subjects were like, "Please don't." And she was like, "Don't worry, I've been studying this guy Zerfi. He lived a long time and was still useful or something." And her subjects were like, "Yeah, because we're pretty sure he killed people and took their bodies. He was a serial killer." And she was like, "Oh, whatever." And then she killed them. All of them. Pretty much her whole, like, empire. She just killed them. Sacrificed them. On the altars. Just cut their throats. It was great. It's not certain it was Atziri's fault, the whole empire crumbling to pieces and everything, but she wasn't doing a whole lot to help it. And her cohort Doriani, the guy who was actually like cutting people's throats to keep her young, doing all that magic stuff, were found at the center of a large cataclysm caused by, quote, internal events, end quote, that destroyed the long-standing Vol civilization. Oh, and the cataclysm made zombies. Because. Don't ask. And after that Vol business with Atziri and murdering her subjects and eternal youth and all that, then came the next notable empire on Wraeclast, the Azmeri, and they sound absolutely nothing like Atziri. The Azmeri, these guys lived in the mountains, and one day they were like, "Hey, remember when the Vol people lived down there in that cool part of Wraeclast instead of up here in the shitty mountains? Remember when they blew themselves up with that skill gem bomb from that Doriani guy? Let's just go build our own civilization on the bones of theirs." And after 400 years, they did just that. They built their new city right on top of the old capital of Vol. Azala Vol was the name of the city. And they were like, "Oh shoot, we should call it something else." So they called it Sarn instead. As empires do, the first dynasty had a lot of inbreeding, and a lot of the later emperors were special. And that was fine, until a part of the empire was plunged into darkness. Like, literally, it was plunged, it was night, forever, just always. And Mr. Current Inbred Emperor is like, "Oh shoot, we gotta deal with this." So we got some legions together, and banished the knights so they no longer had to feel like they lived in Alaska. Which is a nice feeling. Anyway, a few more decades went by, and Azaro Frecius, the last of the original Frecius dynasty, he couldn't make an heir, probably because of all the uncle dads and auntie moms in the family. So in his genius, he was like, "Man, I really love the show Ninja Warrior, not affiliated. Let's do that. But here in the Azmeri Empire, instead of some money or something, the winner gets to be the new emperor." And that is how Chittis Perandus became emperor. I'm not kidding, his name is actually pronounced Chittis. You can find some graffiti in the actual game, and it's read aloud to you, and it's pronounced Chittis.
Captain Osiris, remain in the warehouse until I personally send for you. In the unlikely event that Chittis should fall...
Sounds dumb, but that was his name. After the Perandus family rose to power, much like the Vol... No, Egyptian... No, it was Vol. Much like the Vol, they also decided to become really intimate with gem culture and decorate themselves with it. There's also this guy named Malagaro, but he was weird and magical and liked gems a lot more than anyone should, so he's not really important right now. Then there's this guy named Malachi, who built on Malagaro's studies about gems and found a way to stick them in people and make gemlings. Surgically bonded people gem creatures. Meanwhile, the rest of the Empire is like, yo dude, that's pretty gross, please stop, and he didn't, so they made the original Templars and had themselves a fun rebellion with the help of some other people who are also not important right now. After the rebellion, the leader of it, High Templar Vol, not Vol, because names need to sound similar to drive points home, I guess, even though they're not related at all. Anyway, High Templar Vol took over the reins of the Empire and just crashed the thing. Everything went bad in under 5 years, mostly because he took his whole thing too far and decided to get rid of gems and magic instead of just dabbling in them a little bit. Well, apparently there's this large beast thing at the root of all thaumaturgical power in Wraeclast, and Vol was like, I'ma kill it and stop magic forever. But instead, he was actually like, I'm gonna use it to kill everyone else, because that sounds like more fun? And instead of that happening, the people who are like, I'm going to help you, they're actually like, no. And so, he only kind of succeeded in taking over the beast. And then some guy named Sakema Deshret sealed Mr. Volbeast away under a mountain. Yay. All of that took place a long time ago. As of right now, Wraeclast is pretty much just one big pile of rubble filled with nasties and baddies and monsters and creatures and gross things and a few pockets of civilization. Oh, and those skill gems are still around after they somehow survived 2 cataclysms and a rebellion and some guy trying to exterminate them from the face of the earth. But hey. And I guess it makes sense, because if it was civilized, Oriath wouldn't have a place to exile anyone, and then we wouldn't have a game, now would we?
I've not seen a wilderness like this before. There'll be some dark days ahead.
Bastards dumped near 24 of us off that ship. You and me were all that survived the swim. Never was much difference between exile and the death sentence. Once I catch my breath here, we'll take a look around. See what Wraeclast has on offer. I thought I saw smoke at those ruins up the beach. It could be worth checking if there's...